Okay, now we're going to look at a positive externality, and this occurs where the production of a good or service produces an unintended but positive production of sort of social benefit that we didn't count on. Okay, this happens sometimes. For example, parks do it. I mean, parks sometimes have unintended positive consequences. One real big economic consequence, or sorry, byproduct of a good or service can be like if there is a really cool, like well-placed like arena or something in a cool downtown area. This can create some social problems with like traffic, and that can lead to some problems. But there are also big benefits that come along with that if it's well done and well placed, because when they host events, whether it's ball games or concerts or conventions or whatever, tons of restaurants and cool places downtown pop up, and that brings up property values, which brings people downtown, and it sort of re-energizes a place and brings all kind of really good byproducts. And so that can bring a positive externality the government might want to encourage, right? And so let's look again where we have the original marginal social cost, its marginal social benefit, so socio-optimal price and socio-optimal quantity. And so that's good. It's where we want to be, right? And we learned that the negative externalities when there is a marginal private cost that's forcing the price to be too low and the output to be too high. Well, in the positive externality, we have marginal social cost, right? But the firms that are producing this, the private firms, the marginal private benefit is here. So we don't have a marginal social benefit, which tells us that it's a positive externality because we need to adjust the social benefit of it, okay? So in this case, the price is actually too low because the quantity is too low, because the benefit comes from us demanding this good, and to demand more of it means it's going to bring up the price and consequently the quantity. So let's call this, so if we want to fix this problem, then we would, the government might need to what we call subsidize the production of this good. So, for example, if it's really good to have concerts and conventions and benefit stuff and ball games and stuff in this convention center or this gym, then what the government might do is incentivize people coming down by offering subsidies on ticket prices or for businesses to come downtown. And there's all kind of ways to subsidize it to encourage people. Or a subsidy is essentially the opposite of a tax, where a tax would be an input cost that is moving us to the left, shifting supply curve to the left. This could be something where we take away some of their input costs, right? Or we incentivize people by lowering ticket prices or lowering this. So we can do it from the demand side or the supply side. In this case, we're doing it from the demand side. So if this is where society wants us to be, this would be the socio-optimal quantity, and this is a socio-optimal price, right? So here's where we are, right? That has an externality. Here's where we want to be, right? So the gap between this, we actually call this the marginal external benefit. And by the way, if this is marginal private cost and marginal social cost, the difference between this is actually called the marginal external cost. So to get rid of this external benefit, we see that we have to fix this deadweight loss. So the market has created an inefficiency in the form of a deadweight loss. One good way to figure out which way deadweight loss goes, if it's positive, like this is like put your thumb here, the arrow goes towards making more goods and services. If it's a negative externality, the little triangle goes from making less goods and services. So we would put a per unit subsidy on this and subsidize ticket prices or subsidize these things as a way to encourage people to come out, because if the price goes up, it might discourage them. But if we put a subsidy on this from the demand side, it might encourage people to come out and take part of this, because the benefits of the market price and the market quantity actually isn't enough. Society's not getting as much welfare as they can. There's an inefficiency or a deadweight loss in the market because we're not doing it enough, right? And so economists have to figure out, when we go to build something, when the government builds something, or when a private corporation builds something, or whatever, what is the effect in the market? Is it creating a deadweight loss? Is it creating a market failure? And all of this goes back to the idea of property rights that we're going to talk about in terms of who owns the property, and when you own a property, what you do with it, and then what are the rights of you versus other people. That is going to get into a lot more in the sixth unit, actually the fifth unit, the last unit of micro, the property rights part is. But all of these ideas of externalities go into the issue of who actually owns or is producing this good, and then what can we do about it. It becomes a little bit easier to understand the fifth unit. Actually, in this unit, we don't do a lot of externality stuff, but I'm teaching it to you now. That way, when we get to the fifth unit, it's super simple. But what you need to know is that when we have this gap between what society wants up here and what society is getting, then the government needs to step in and do something to fix these problems, right? And these problems are caused because of deadweight loss, okay?